If you've ever stood on a frozen lake on a cold night, you know the sound. A deep crack rips across the ice like a rifle shot, travels right under your feet, and disappears into the dark. Your whole body tenses. Every instinct you have says one thing: move. Now picture this. It's 3 in the morning, somewhere in the Northwest Territories. There's a camp parked on top of a frozen lake, trailers, fuel tanks, a few rigs. Below it, about a meter of ice. Below that, 200 feet of black water. And all night long, the ice is talking, cracking, booming, groaning like something alive down there. And inside those trailers, men are asleep. Not because they're reckless, not because they can't hear it. They hear every single crack. They've just learned something that takes most people years to understand. The sound that terrifies you is the exact same sound that's keeping them alive. There are 3 layers to this story. The first is why they're out there sleeping on the ice at all when solid ground is right there. The second is the science that decides whether that ice holds or swallows a 40-ton truck whole. And the third is the part almost nobody expects. It is the reason these crews sleep better on a cracking lake than most people do in their own beds. By the end of this video, you'll never hear ice crack the same way again. So let us start with the obvious question: why sleep on the ice? Why not just drive to shore, park on solid ground, and spend the night somewhere? The worst that can happen is the cold. Most people assume it is about distance, that there is simply nowhere else to go. That is part of it, but it is not the real reason. Let me set the scene properly. A road like the famous Tibet to Contwoito Winter Road in Canada runs around 400 miles, and roughly 85% of that is driven directly across frozen lakes. These roads exist for exactly one reason. At the far end are diamond mines and remote communities with no other way in, no permanent road, no railway, nothing. For about 2 months a year, when the lakes freeze hard enough, a temporary highway opens across the water. Then spring comes, it melts, and it is gone. This 2-month window is everything. Miss it and a mine does not get a year's worth of fuel. So the trucks do not stop. They run in convoys 24 hours a day, all season long. And here is the first thing people do not realize: the crews cannot just clock out and drive home. Home might be hundreds of miles back across the same ice they just crossed. The job is out here. So the camp comes with them. But there's a second reason, and it's the surprising one. You'd think the safest move would be to pull every truck off the lake and onto land for the night. It's the opposite. The most dangerous ice on the entire route is the ice closest to shore. The shoreline is where ice is thinnest and weakest. It's warmer near land. The ice doesn't bond cleanly to the bank, and water seeps up around the edges. Out in the middle of a deep lake, that same ice can be a meter thick and rock solid. So a camp set up on good mid-lake ice is sitting on a stronger foundation than one parked at the edge. The terrifying location is the safe one. The safe-looking one is the trap. And that's only possible because of something most people get completely backwards about ice. It has to do with what actually makes ice strong and what makes it deadly. Here's the rule that governs everything out there. Cold ice is strong ice. Warm ice kills. When people see a truck on a frozen lake, they assume the enemy is the cold. It's the opposite. The colder it gets, the thicker and harder the ice grows, and the more weight it carries. The danger isn't winter. The danger is anything that warms the ice back up. Let me put real numbers on it. To hold a person on foot, you need about 4 inches of solid ice. A small pickup needs 8 to 12 inches. But a fully loaded semi hauling 40 tons of fuel, the crews want around a meter of ice, roughly 40 inches, measured all the way across the road. And they don't guess. They drill holes and measure with a tape. They run trucks fitted with radar that reads the ice from below. Satellites 250 miles up in orbit can actually detect the ice flexing under a moving truck. Not all ice is equal either. Clear blue ice, the hard, glassy kind that forms in deep cold, is the strong stuff. White ice, the slushy, snow-fed kind, has only about half the strength. A foot of white ice is not a foot of safety. Now here's where it gets strange. The ice you're parked on is not solid ground. It's a flexible sheet floating on water, and it bends. When a truck rolls across it, the ice sags into a shallow bowl under the wheels, a depression several inches deep that travels along with the truck. And under that bowl, in the water, a pressure wave moves with the truck like the wake behind a boat. This is why ice roads have brutally low speed limits, often just 15 miles per hour for a loaded truck. Go faster, and that wave grows. Hit a certain critical speed and it starts to resonate, pumping more and more energy into the ice until it cracks. And here's the cruel part. When that wave races ahead of the truck and reaches the shoreline, it bounces back. The returning wave slams into the next one and heaves the ice upward into what's called a blowout, a hole punched through the road by water, not weight. Which leads to a fact that sounds impossible but is well documented up there. When a truck speeds, it's often not that driver who goes through the ice. It's the next truck behind him driving straight into the wave he left behind. That's why the rigs stay spaced as far as half a kilometer apart, and it's why nobody ever stops on the ice. A parked truck is concentrated weight and warmth sitting in one place, the two things ice hates most. So now you understand the system. But understanding it raises the obvious nightmare question. What happens when it actually goes wrong? Picture it. You're in the cab, crossing a wide lake at 2 in the morning. Pitch black. Headlights on, nothing but white. And under the tires, the sound changes, softer, wetter. The exact sound every ice road driver dreads. This is why these drivers do something that feels insane. On the worst stretches, they unbuckle the seatbelt and crack the door open while driving. Because if the ice gives, you have seconds. A loaded truck punching through ice does not float. It goes straight down into water cold enough to stop your heart in minutes. The only survivable version of that night is the one where you're already halfway out the door before the truck is. And every crew lives by the rule that sits above all the others: the ice is never trusted. Not the thickness reading, not yesterday's measurement, not the truck that crossed fine an hour ago. The lake changes by the hour, which is exactly why surviving out here doesn't start when you hear that wet sound under the tires. It starts long before, with preparation most people never think about. The first thing is the ice itself, and it's built, not found. Crews don't wait on nature. Early in the season, they plow the snow off the lake. Because snow is a blanket, it insulates the ice and slows it from thickening. Strip that snow away. Expose the ice to the deep cold, and it grows faster and harder. In some places, they even flood the surface to freeze fresh layers on top. The second thing is timing the temperature. The whole road lives and dies by the thermometer. Crews chase the cold, opening heavier loads only as the ice thickens, and the moment a warm spell rolls in, weight limits drop or the road shuts down entirely. In a hard winter, the ice can grow to 5 feet thick by season's end. The enemy on the calendar is in January. It's the first warm week of spring. The third thing is reading the cracks. Not every crack is a threat. A dry, shallow surface crack is normal, just the ice relieving stress. A wet crack, one weeping water up to the surface, is a warning. Crews learn to tell them apart instantly, and the road is monitored and patched all season long. And the fourth thing is the simplest and most important of all: never alone. The trucks move in convoys. If one goes through, the others are right there. Out on a frozen lake at -40, a man alone is a man in serious trouble. A man with 3 trucks behind him has a chance. Now here is the part that surprises everyone. Ask a crew member who has spent a season sleeping on a cracking lake whether those sounds keep him up at night. Most of them will tell you the opposite, and the reason flips everything you have ever felt about ice. The deep crack that races under the camp at 3 in the morning, the one that would launch you out of bed, is, most of the time, the sound of the ice getting stronger. When the temperature plunges at night, the ice contracts. It can't shrink quietly, so it splits and booms, firing those rifle shot cracks across the lake. The whole frozen sheet acts like the skin of a giant drum, and every little fracture echoes for miles. But that sound means one thing above all else. It's cold. And cold is exactly what these crews want. The loud nights are the safe nights. It's the silent, warming days that should scare you. So the crews learn to hear it differently. To everyone else, a booming lake is a horror movie. To them, it's a status report. The ice is talking, and what it's mostly saying is, I'm holding, I'm getting thicker, you're fine. And there is something else they describe, something you can't get anywhere else. Out there, far from any town, on a lake the size of a small sea, the quiet between the cracks is total. No traffic, no neighbors, no phones, just a sheet of ice a meter thick, the hum of a heater, and a sound this planet has been making far longer than there have been people to hear it. So the next time you're standing on a frozen lake and you hear that deep crack tear past your feet, you don't have to run. That sound is not the ice failing. Most of the time, it's the ice promising it will hold. The people who work up there already know that. It is why they are sleeping right through it. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you sleep in a trailer parked on a frozen lake, listening to it crack all night long? Be honest, down in the comments. And if you've ever heard ice boom on a lake near you, tell me where you were when it happened. I read every single one. If you learned something today, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you out on the icy.